because our house is at the bottom of McDougal Street and the snowplow comes down and piles snow on top of like the side of our fence, I would need dynamite to clear the sidewalk. I'm not kidding. This side on the length of our house. Last winter, I noticed that the snowplows for the second year in a row were piling snow in the lane that goes into Davies Field, which is the only snow fire access for about 30 houses. So I talked to the neighborhood association and I contacted the fire department. The city told the neighborhood association that you may think that there's a concept of fire lanes, but there really is no concept of fire lanes except in front of commercial businesses. The fire department said, made the city stop the snow plows from putting the snow in the lane because there was a fire issue. So it's not Halifax. We lived in Halifax. They have little spaces between the road and the sidewalk where people can put the snow. There's nowhere to put the snow. That wasn't my question. My question is about vacant properties in the downtown, because I grew up in Toronto, okay? And I hate to do this to you, but in Toronto, if you have a vacant property, your property taxes are significantly higher than if you have an occupied property. And I just wonder if any of you have anything you'd like to say about vacant properties in the downtown.
All right.
Thanks for the question. That question's been posed quite a bit throughout the campaign, and one thing that I learned when I started to speak with business owners is that although sometimes there's vacant property, it's not to say that that property doesn't have a plan. Oftentimes, the people who own them are in the process of seeking financial assistance. They're waiting for franchise partnerships to be signed, so it's quite a challenge. Now, there are other vacant buildings within the city that are falling down in disrepair for quite some time. The city does have a responsibility to open the dialogue with those owners. That's something that I'm not aware has happened. It's something that I would be willing to do, is to open the dialogue. That's the first thing, to understand why the buildings have been vacant for quite some time. If they're vacant because people just don't care, I think the city would have a responsibility to step in and to either enforce some type of sanction on the owner or to seize property. They have to take a strong stance. But if you see a vacant building, I was the same way. You know, I called some of the owners in question. Some of them are in the process of finalizing some long-term plan for those structures. So I do respect the questions that you've raised.
We'll mix it up a little bit. And first off, thank you very much, Janet, for your perspective on that. I think that's would be obviously a very important part about any sort of bylaw along those lines, is figuring out whether or not it will work and if and how. And then as far as the vacant properties question, though, I think that absolutely I would be interested in some sort of bylaw like that, or something that would kick in potentially after a period of time, so that, I don't know how long it takes business owners to, depending on the situation, maybe to sort of their property, but after a reasonable period of time, that they should start paying more property tax, because it kills areas of the downtown, especially when there's multiple ones there. And this is just off the top of my head a little bit too, but like on Broadwalk Lane, Churchill Square, and all the empty Dominion ones there on Tory Road and such. I know that part of the issue there is that they have no compete clauses. So if you want to lease from them, then you're not allowed to put anything that sells food in there. If the city expropriated that land, I have no idea whether or not such a no compete clause would be there. And I'd love to see, if that was possible, I would absolutely love to see the city expropriate those and put grocery stores back in, most of those.
There you go.
It's not just vacant buildings, actually, and as I've been going around Ward 2, I've come across 3 instances where residents have said, you see that house over there? There's nobody been living in that house for 5 years, 10 years. It's fallen down. It's a rat trap. We're all trying to keep our homes up. This person over here wants to sell their home, but they can't until something happens to that, because they know that they're not going to get what they want for their home until something happens to this place. And they've gone to the city, and they've done everything they can do, and gotten absolutely nowhere. And the buildings, like these guys have said, you know, Dominion, for one, has got 3 vacant buildings that I know of in this city, and they're just sitting on them. And it's ridiculous. So the city needs to step up and be aggressive in this case. You know, these corporations like that, if they're not motivated by the pocketbook, they're not going to do it. So raise the taxes, you know, double them, triple them, whatever it takes to get them to move on these properties. You know, the neighborhoods around them deserve to be able to prosper, and they're being held back by these empty structures.